Yeah, I'm moderating.
No, but like, someone was like, can you sign this for?
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is John Howard. I am the director of the library. And for several years since I've got here, I thought I wanted to have more opportunities for people to come to the library and learn firsthand about things in our community. And I thought this was a great opportunity to really put that in action. I'd like to go ahead and have each of our question answering panel introduce themselves tonight, and then I'll talk a little bit more about how this is going to operate and what we're trying to do. So, Sean, if you get us started.
Sure. Sean Widener, Village Mohammeds, Village President or Mayor.
Hi, my name is Sunny McMurray. I'm the current president of the Board of Education.
Lindsay Hall, previous superintendent, now retired.
Kenny Lee, I'm the current superintendent.
All right, so let me just tell you a little bit about what the night's going to go. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about what's happening in your community. I want to assure you that there is going to be opportunities for you all to ask your questions. And then if you'd all rather just listen and have me answer questions, I'll do that too. But our goal for tonight is just this referendum with the school district is a hot topic in Mahomet. I want to be very clear in saying that the Mahomet Library does not officially oppose or support or oppose a referendum. It's not our role. We've organized this evening to make sure that Mahomet residents have the opportunity to ask questions directly of those who would best be qualified to answer those questions. You know, I think we all have a tendency to get our information from not always really reliable sources. And here you have the opportunity to ask the people who really have been involved. So it's my hope that we can do more things like this. I hope at the end of the night tonight, if you have other things you want to learn about that you'd like me to get speakers in about, let me know and we can do more of these. We have asked our presenters not to tell anyone how to vote. They're here to answer questions about the plans for the referendum itself, the history of the school district, the community in which we're located. Our hope is just that you get the information you need to make the most informed decision. For a couple of things, if a lot of people have questions already, we're going to go directly to audience questions to start out. If we don't have anybody who wants to start out, I have some intro questions. I do think Kenny's going to give us just a little bit of background to the actual process that we got getting here, not more than about 10 minutes, I think. And then we'll go into the question things. Do you guys, how many people have questions they're ready to ask as soon as we're ready to go? All right, well, we'll probably let you get me started, and I can go to my questions after that, but that'll be in a few minutes. Just a couple of kind of ground rules. We want this to be a safe place for people to have these kind of discussions, and safety requires civility. And I don't have any question that we can all be civil. I will call on people with the goal of giving as many people as possible a turn to ask their questions. Each first question that is asked, you have an opportunity for one follow-up question. So if you ask a question, they say something you want to follow up with, there'll be that. After that, then if there's other people waiting, we'll give them a turn, but we'll try to come back to you. A small amount of commentary may be included with your question, but we ask that people not give speeches or tell others how they should vote. I promise people they can come learn tonight and not be told how to vote. So please help me keep that promise that I've made. Okay. I think I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Kenny Lee, to talk a little bit about kind of how we've gotten to this point, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Sure. Thank you, John, and thank you all for coming this evening. So what I'll do is talk a little bit about our process that we utilized. I've got a computer right here too. Our process that we utilized and how we got to this point. So in the spring of 2023, our Board of Education went through a reorganization, and when we reorganized, then I brought to them a proposal to go through the strategic planning process to really take a look at mapping out where we wanted the district to go and get feedback from our stakeholders on what that direction would look like. As a precursor to that, then the board said, well, let's get out this late spring and all summer and get feedback from our constituents prior to starting the strategic planning process. So In May, we started off with an open session of just really to have people come in, and we called them listening sessions, and we had stakeholders and community members came into Lincoln Trail, was our first one, and just talked. They talked about their concerns with finances, with curriculum, with activities, and facilities, and just shared their concerns, and we celebrated successes. And we did 5 of those that spring and summer. We were in Seymour, we did one here, we had one virtually, and just went through and took detailed notes, and then kept all of those notes together and really tried to get some themes that came out of that. From that point, in the fall, we put out a survey to all of our stakeholders that we could get in contact with, asking for volunteers to join our strategic planning team. So we put together a strategic planning team in the fall of '23 that had teachers, staff, other staff members, students, administrators, community members, parents, and members of our Board of Education on that team. And then we all went through the strategic planning process. At that point then, as our strategic planning team approved a strategic plan in October of '23, and our Board of Education then approved that in November of '23. During that time, we also sent out a survey to all of our parents. It's hard for us to get in contact with all of the community members, but what we did was we tried to have Mr. Howard send out to his email list, the village sent out to their email list, Corn Belt, Rotary, anybody who has email lists that we were aware of, to try to get additional feedback from people who aren't parents, because obviously that's a large number of stakeholders as well. When we created our strategic plan, we came up with our mission statement, and that's committed to excellence for all Bulldogs to achieve, learn, and lead. And we created a vision of we are all Bulldogs preparing courageous learners to achieve their aspirations through collaboration, innovation, and exploration. Part of a strategic plan comes up with 6 goals, and our 6 goals center around academics and achievement, communication, facilities, finance, safety, and technology. Something a little bit different about our process is that oftentimes when you go through the strategic planning process, everybody does a cheer and they say, we've got a strategic plan, and then it goes on a shelf and collects dust for 3 to 5 years, and then we go back through the strategic planning process again. So we engaged with our strategic planning facilitator to go through a process called Living the Strategic Plan, and it lays out all of our indicators that we want to do, and then creates a scorecard that our administrative team is held accountable for by reporting back quarterly or periodically throughout the school year back to our Board of Education to make sure that we're all doing our job of implementing this strategic plan. There's nothing worse than a lot of people putting their valuable time into creating a plan and then nothing being done with it. So we've got that into place, and we'll give our first report at our November Board of Education meeting, because this is the first year of implementation. As far as our goal leaders that are held accountable for each category, academics and achievement is Dr. Megan Bagby. She's our assistant superintendent. I'm in charge of our communication goal, our facilities goal, and our safety goal. Ms. Smith, our chief school business official, is in charge of our finance goal, and Dr. Bagby and Kyle Williams, who's our director of technology, are in charge of our technology goal. During all of our listening sessions and our survey, it was resounding feedback in all of our forums that we had, our parents, our stakeholders had space concerns, our aging facilities were at the forefront, and they urged the district to implement changes throughout this process. From that point, we created what we call a facilities guidance team. Our facilities guidance team, we had up to 100 people volunteered. Generally, we had engagement sessions of between 40 and 60 people attend. We started that in the late winter and into early spring, and our group whittled down 9 different scenarios of what our buildings would look like to improve. They whittled that down to 4, and then we did a community survey and sent out those 4 options. The results of that survey was really inconclusive, but 2 options really rose to the top. So we sent that back, the 2 options back out to the taxpayers, And that's how we ended up with, at the August 5th, 2024 Board of Education special meeting, our board approved a $112.8 million proposition to put forth to the taxpayers on our November 5th election. So again, just a little bit of a review how we got there. We started off with listening sessions. We did a strategic plan survey, created a strategic plan team. What was born from our facilities goal from the strategic planning process was a facilities guidance team. They narrowed 9 scenarios down to 4. Survey 1 was inconclusive but narrowed it to 2 options. Survey 2 favored the current proposal that's on our ballot. This is the actual referendum question that people will see on the ballot. I'll just give you a moment to read through that. And then the next question that people ask is, what does this mean? So what that $112 million bond proposal means is that at Middletown Prairie, which is over here across the street, there would be no physical changes in the project, but it would remove second grade students from the building. We would alter, repair, and equip some items at Lincoln Trail Elementary, and that would remove third grade from Lincoln Trail. For a building that would be named later, there would be a new second and third grade building that would be built south of Middletown Prairie, but to the north of South Mahomet Road. So in between Middletown Prairie and South Mahomet Road. The junior high would be, a brand new junior high would be built south of the current building. The current building would be demolished for additional parking. We would, since the soccer field is the location where the new junior high would be built, we would move the soccer field to the high school, and still on the junior high, the current junior high site would be a new 200-meter track built for athletics activities and PE classes. At Mahomet Seymour High School, there would be no changes at this present time, but in 5 or 6 years, we would issue $40 million worth of bonds to improve the high school, and that would be issued alongside of some other alternative revenue bonds and debt certificates that would roll off due to the construction of Middletown Prairie, so there would be no tax increase with that project. I also just wanted to point you to our website that we have. There's a link off of our current website, and here is a lot of different information that just goes through. It gives an overview. Along with that overview is an informational video that has been shared, what the project includes, and then it has some conceptual drawings. Along the top here, you see we have different tabs. So if we click on enrollment, there's some different information about some historical enrollment and some projections. There's also a tab for property tax info where our taxpayers can take their individual tax bills and type items in there, and it will give you an approximate number of how that will affect your tax bill. And then there's also a frequently asked question tab at the top that has some questions that we've received over time that have already been populated in there. And then if you have a question that's not on here, you can always click on the I have a question button. And then that is an email that gets to me, and then it asks if you'd like to be contacted or not. And if you would, there's a spot on there for your email and telephone. And certainly I will call you or email you as soon as possible if anybody has any questions. Also, after tonight, if people have additional questions, please feel to reach out and give me a call in the office. I'm happy to meet with you or talk with you on the phone. And if anybody at any time would like a tour of any of our buildings, I'll make myself available to do so if you would like to during the day when we have students in the building, or if you would like to do so before school or after school, I'll make myself available and we'll schedule something.
Well, thank you. I'm going to go jump to audience questions, and then if there are people who would like me to ask questions, we can go to that too. And since you've asked a question, I will ask, since we don't have a microphone for the audience, if you would just, if audience members, please let me know if you want a specific person to talk, or else they'll decide among them who's the best person to answer the question. And if you could kind of repeat or summarize the question a little bit for the video. Again, we'll have this on our YouTube channel that none of you knew the library had because we hardly ever use it. But we'll have links to it out around so you can find it. So, do you want to go ahead and give us a start today?
Hi, my name is Cassandra Webham. I have been with the community for 20-some years. I was very, very involved with the MSPTO, very involved. And you're the board, the village mayor?
Village president, mayor,
Okay.
same thing.
Okay, first of all, I wanna start by telling both Dr. Lee and you, sir, how much I appreciate how much you have done for the community. One thing I've learned with Muhammad is no dog fights alone, period. But I'm also, when people would ask me if I'm gonna vote, my quick answer is no, I'm not gonna vote for it. Because there's more to it that I see than what you're giving. And I am a huge couponer. I have been known to walk into Dollar General, walk out only paying sales tax. So, my question for you, sir, is, I apologize, not to sound like I'm throwing rotten eggs at you, but with the project that is going downtown, why could we not have reserved that for a couple years, donated the money to the school district, which is much more in need, and then attack to that at a later date?
Sounds like a Sean question to me.
Sure, well,
Can you kind of repeat the question?
so I think the question would be is could we reallocate capital improvement projects, the money we're paying for those, to the school district? Is that,
In a sense, yes.
or donate, you said?
Donate in a sense, because I think that it would have helped not only the school district, help the taxpayers, which some are in a crunch or on a tight budget, and they're seeing all these figures, but then they see Main Street's been closed for some time, and my in-laws and I have dinner every week, and that has been the biggest topic of why not this? Because my mother-in-law is just like me, we're both penny pinchers.
Alright, so Sean, would you like to do your best?
I'll do my best on this one. Sure, so I think that overall, we understand or recognize that, you know, our constituents are the same constituents for the school district, first and foremost. So coordination, collaboration, discussion, those are all items that we do. At the end of the day though, your taxes you pay to the village of Muhammad have a whole wide range of things that we're trying to accomplish, our own vision and mission outside of what the school district is trying to do. So I just don't see the parallel or the connection there to even be rational as far as to give a donation of taxpayer dollars paid to the village of Muhammad to another taxing body. There's other ways of doing that as far as the coordination and support, and that's through our joint agreements with TIF districts and everything else that we were on together, but not actual donation of tax dollars. Because that could be your opinion that you say, hey, you should do that, but there's, you know.
I mean, I know that there's legalities involved.
And 9,000 other people may not think the same way, right?
Right.
And where their tax dollars going. So it's kind of a difficult question to answer, but I just, yeah.
I have a follow-up question with that. How much is the downtown project?
How much?
Yeah,
About 1.3 million? 1.3 million.
so in theory, if you donated it, it would take it from a
112
one
down.
12 to 111. I mean, just.
Oops.
Alright,
I mean.
alright,
I did, we got talked about.
okay, looks like a question in the front here.
Can you run through, kind of building by building and describe the current conditions of the number of students in the building, what it's designed for, what it currently has, what's ideal, what's not?
think he's doing enough work.
So by September 30th, we had to turn in our enrollment to the Regional Office of Education. So this is a couple weeks old, but at Lincoln Trail Elementary on September 29th, we were at 811 students.
And can you remind us what grades are in each building as well when we get
You
there?
bet, you bet. So first of all, John, the question is, if I could go through and talk about the enrollment at each building and then, and then the capacity at each one. So currently at Lincoln Trail Elementary, we have 811 students, and that is 3 through 5. At the high school, which is 9 through 12, we have 1,056 students. At the junior high, we have 812, and that is 6, 7, and 8. And at Middletown Prairie, we have pre-K through 2nd grade, and that is 798. So right now, the main space constraints that we have are at Lincoln Trail Elementary and at our junior high. The last number I saw is that that Lincoln Trail's capacity was right around 700. Damien, do you remember that for sure?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
And then at the junior high, was I believe 650 is what that was built for. But we do have portable classrooms behind that. So we've got 2 portable buildings, which is 4 classrooms. And if you look at putting somewhere around 30 people in each one of those classrooms, so.
So you said Lincoln Trail was built for 600 and we got 812?
No, Lincoln Trail was built for 700.
700. And what was the one you were quoting that was built for 600?
The junior high was built for 650, is that what I said, or 600? Do you remember from the
Close to
study?
600, 625, 630.
But we've got the portables behind that. And then we've also got the classrooms at the junior high that we have temporary walls down the middle. We have 3 classrooms that have temporary walls to create the six classrooms there.
And what's the high school built for?
The high schools, we still have some capacity at the high school, so I would say 1,100.
I have a follow-up question, if I may. So, comparing apples to oranges, I know in Champaign, the school district, some of the kids that were late registering, still do not have a home classroom. Is that true for any Muhammad student? Or are they all in classes?
Say more about what you mean by
Okay,
home.
some of the students in Champaign, their parents registered them late. So some of those kids have yet to be in school, physically in school yet, for the school year.
I don't think that's legal.
I
Like,
talked to
being
the
a Champaign
principal.
teacher, being a Champaign teacher, like, I don't know that they legally can.
She's asking.
Because they don't have, because,
Oh.
She's asking what's
Okay.
happening here.
is it happening here?
No.
Certainly not to my knowledge, and I would think that I would have heard about that. So certainly, once you register, we place you in a class, and then the administrative assistant will send an email to the staff saying, we've got a new student today. Her name is Sunny McMurray. She's been placed in 1st grade in this class.
Before we move on, I just want to check, did you feel like your question was answered?
I don't think I got.
Yeah, I felt like maybe there was a little bit of it that didn't get
Oh,
answered.
I'm sorry.
Did you ask about the
the-
submissions?
At Middletown Prairie Elementary, the enrollment's 798, and we've got some room there still. Probably built for, since the addition, probably 850. Sorry that I didn't answer your question.
Okay, no, I just wanted to double check with you before we have someone here who wanted to ask a
Yeah,
question.
just to follow up to his question, can you talk a little bit about cart teach, like what it means for some teachers being on carts and not having a classroom, and what that means for moving through classrooms and what that might look like?
And can you please repeat the question?
Yes, so the question is that, what does it mean to have a teacher on a cart? Is that fair? On a cart?
Yes.
Like a go-kart?
No, so like, when you and I were in school, do you remember when they bring in the overhead projector? That, and they,
Oh, yes.
yeah, that cart generally,
Oh.
yeah. So generally, if a teacher's on a cart and what happens is that at times when you get to your room utilization gets as such that everybody doesn't have what you would traditionally call a home room, and they travel all day, then they're on what we would just call a cart. So then they're taking all of their materials with them to whatever room is open during that period. So if Mrs. McMurray's class is at an encore class, so if they're in PE and I'm an art teacher and that room's open, if I'm an art teacher that's on a cart, then I'm going to take all of my materials into Mrs. McMurray's room. So during her planning period, then she needs to go somewhere else and do her planning because I'm utilizing her classroom to teach a course. Is that?
Is that a fairly common occurrence at our schools at this point, or?
So we've got, I believe, 1 or 2 at the junior high and a couple at the high school right now. But if we see at Lincoln Trail, we're really utilizing all the space. That either increased class sizes or on the cart is how that will go with if we continue to see increased class sizes at Lincoln Trail, or increased enrollment, excuse me. You got anything to add?
I just wanted to add a comment about the core spaces as it relates. Just wanted to add a comment about the core spaces as it relates to your question about capacity and putting more and more kids into the schools. While it is possible to perhaps create more space for teachers and other professionals to interact with students, in some cases we have people in closets and places that are traditionally more thought of as storage areas and that type of thing. And we've split classrooms at the junior high, and we've added portables at the junior high. The places that we cannot add space are the restrooms, the hallways, the cafeteria, the library, the gymnasiums, and the locker rooms. So while we can slice and dice up classroom spaces and make them smaller and smaller and put more kids in there, what's not changing is all those spaces that I just listed. And that's also where we're seeing issues with space, especially Lincoln Trail and certainly the junior high.
I have a follow-up question related to capacity. Is there any information or studies on what that does to the education of the students when you have a facility that is beyond its capacity?
I'm gonna say, I bet there are. I'm not ready to quote that this evening, but I have no doubt there's research about that, but I think that if we sit all together in a room like this and put our heads together and we think about students who are developmentally in the age range of 11 through 14, which is already a very difficult and challenging time to be a middle grade student. And then really since the pandemic, we've seen quite an increase in mental health issues with students of all ages, that when there's issues with overcrowding, it's obviously less than ideal in terms of the support you're able to offer students. And I think it's important for all of us to think about the message that gets sent to students when they might have to sit in the hallways to get intervention and support and help, or they might be in less than a private situation, or they might be in a closet. So while I'm offering more of my opinion right here and experience as an educator, I have no doubt that there is some quality research out there about the implications of overcrowding and how it impacts students and teachers for that matter.
To follow up a little bit on that as well, we've implemented the middle school concept, and as a former middle school principal, one thing that you try to do within your school is really build a school community. And if we have portables, and we do a good job of people aren't in the portables all day. When I was a principal, that's how it was set up. So like the 6th grade E team where I was, is that they were out there all day, and it's really hard to build a sense of community with that. And then from previous experience along those lines, when I was a principal, we were 250 students over capacity with portables as well. And when you have that many impulsive young adolescents on top of each other, certainly you know, it's obvious that discipline occurs a little bit more than what it normally would as well. But I don't have any empirical study right now to, you know, quote or anything like that, but just previous experience.
Yeah, can I add a follow-up question to the
Sure,
discussion?
absolutely.
How has the educational spaces, the needs changed in the last 20 years? Because as I look around, I'm one of the youngest people here, and my gray hair may be deceiving. But,
That's a good question, because you kind of alluded to a middle school model, and I'm not sure everybody understands what that means. Can you kind of touch, like, piggyback on that and answer?
Sure, so the question is, how has education changed in the, since educational spaces since we went through? First of all, part of that is the middle school concept. The middle school concept is where students are placed on teams, and then they have those, let's say, 5 teachers and the same group of kids alternate between that, and then in a traditional model, you also have advisory hour as well. We call ours the Bulldog Power Hour, and it goes through with that, and you're building a sense of community within that. Having just those 5 teachers allows that each teacher knows what's going on in all of those different classes, and it allows them to make those connections amongst topics that really gets through the scaffolding piece of making sure that we're making those connections. As far as spaces, when I went to junior high, for instance, we didn't have interventionists, we didn't have instructional coaches. You know, it was really, you just sat in a chair and wrote notes for 50 minutes and then went home. And education's much different. It looks a lot different than it did 30, 40 years ago, and it does require more space because of that. Small group instruction and flexible space as well.
Just one thing that I want to add is one thing I feel a lot of our educators are really good at is that collaborative piece. And when you have larger class sizes, it would be nice to have some overlap of collaborative spaces between classrooms. So like, you know, as opposed to sitting in a half classroom with your math teacher at the junior high, if you had a larger space where you could maybe bring a couple math classrooms together, or the math teacher and the ELA teacher could co-teach within a specific space. So a lot of our teachers right now are being really innovative in how we are collaborating, helping our students collaborate across the day. And so when you're in these little isolated spaces, it's a lot harder to do that.
Here we go, in the front.
You alluded to class sizes and stuff. What are the class sizes currently, and you know what's a you know, like a standard or whatever?
Do you have those?
What's that?
Class sizes.
I do not have all of those handy, but one thing that we try to do is we try to keep class sizes lower at the lower the grade. That's. Okay.
I have them from the principals.
Okay. So generally though, at the junior high and high school is where they're the highest. You'll probably see somewhere between 28 and in some courses 32. And then generally we'll try to keep them 18 to 22 at Middletown Prairie, somewhere in there. We've got some second grade classes at 25, I know, as we saw enrollment bump up right before registration. And then at Middletown, or at Lincoln Trail then, the 3-5 building will be a little bit higher than Middletown Prairie and a little bit lower than the junior high. So I would say those would be in the mid to upper 20s as an average.
Does that match up with what you're finding
out?
online?
How's the fact check going back
Well,
there?
kindergarten is 19 to 20.
What's
First
that?
grade, kindergarten is 19 to 20.
Okay.
First grade is 22 to 23. Second grade is 24 to 25. And then Megan.
Just out of curiosity, what is the source of these numbers?
Principals.
Okay. Principal, I mean, is this from a website?
No, I just texted the principals because someone asked me the question on
Okay.
Facebook, and so I asked them so I could answer it.
All right.
with
No,
factual
thank you. I just
data. Yeah.
no,
Third grade is really the biggest class with 291, but they're the COVID kids, so they added another classroom. So fifth grade, I mean. So they added an extra section, so they're at 25-ish. Fourth grade is 26 to 27, and third grade is 25 to 27.
Thank you.
It's pretty close.
Thank you. Yeah, like
I
the
told
life
you
fact
you were
checking is
on.
pretty exciting, isn't it? All right, so anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to ask a question, who still has a question they want to ask? Yeah, Nadia.
Follow up is, it's like, so you gave us the sizes of the current buildings and their current capacities. What's the projected size of the new 6 to 8 and the new 2 to 3?
Sure. Damien, where's the sizes at that we can just refer to?
If you just scroll down on this, if this is on page, includes, it says it over above.
Okay, so the construction of a new 6th through 8th grade facility with a capacity of 900 to 1,100 students,
And then we do 2, 3 at the top, 6 to 700.
and then 6 to 700 for the 2-3.
But will that make the class sizes go down?
So the class sizes would go down, and then if enrollment continues to grow, then that's where we adjust. The other thing I want to be clear on is that class sizes also class sizes adjust based on what the state funding is doing. So years ago, we have some guidelines that we follow based on what's happening with state funding. So it's like anything. If you've got extra money laying around, you might have, you're not laying around, but in your household, in your own household, you might go out to dinner a few more times if you've worked a bunch of overtime and you've got some extra. But if times are a little bit leaner, then the class sizes go up based on that to make sure that we're being responsible and trying to balance the budget as much as possible.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about school funding. What is funding? Yeah, school funding 101 in 3 minutes. What is that based on? The timing of the numbers? What can that funding be used for? And how did we get where we are?
And can you repeat that question?
Sure. Sure. She asked to talk a little bit about school funding as far as what can the funds be used for, the timing of that, and
that it's previous year.
yes, and that it's the previous year. So we are currently in what's called an evidence-based funding model. So they look at your enrollment, and we also look at our assessed evaluation for our local real estate taxes that come in. So if we look at the first piece of that of our local real estate taxes, we levy in December for next school year. So it's really an interesting model to where you start spending money of a budget on July 1st, but you don't approve that budget until September, and then that right away in December you have to know how much money to ask your taxpayers for the following school year. It doesn't make any sense, but that's just the way it is, and that's the way that it's always been. When we levy for that, we levy by fund, and we have what are called restricted funds and unrestricted funds. So our restricted funds are our operating funds, so our education fund, and the majority of our education fund goes for salary and benefits. Another restricted fund is our transportation fund. So every school district can levy 20 cents for our transportation fund. All of those have maximum limits that you can ask for, and the only way that you can ask for more is through referendum. Those are state statutes on that. You can't spend education money to build a building from the ed fund, and then you have what are called unrestricted funds, which would be like your IMRF and your TORC, which is your risk management. So with your IMRF, that money you can ask for as much as you need, but that money can only be utilized to pay for your IMRF.
So the retirement fund program.
The Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund, thank you for asking that to clarify. In education, we use way too many acronyms, so I'm gonna need somebody to hold me accountable for that, so I appreciate that, Mr. Piano. The evidence-based funding model that I spoke about is our state funding. They see what you have locally as far as how much money that you have coming in from your real estate taxes, and then in a perfect world, then they fund what the state thinks that you need. We have seen an increase in our evidence-based funding over the past few years, but they say what they want you to be is 100% adequacy, And when you look at all of our different funding, we are operating at about 64% adequacy right now. So we really feel like we have an awful good product for what the state says is that we're at about 64%.
And about what percentage of the funding comes from the state, what comes from the local area, roughly?
I've got that, just
I
give me a moment.
do too. It's in my referendum folder, I just saw it today. This is from Heather Smith, the chief business.
School business official.
Yes. Local 60.1%, you might need to repeat it for the.
Yes, locally, 60.1%.
State, 31.7%,
31.7% for the state,
and federal is 8.2%.
8.2%. So that's a couple of different grants as we get through federal funding.
So if it's all right, I have a few questions that I don't think have been asked, but that I hear a lot, so I'd like to go ahead. Sean, I'm gonna actually ask you to talk a little bit, because I think you probably have the most knowledge on this. What I'm hearing people say who are about this is that their property taxes are already going up fairly substantially. And I'm curious if you could talk to us and tell us a little bit about why that is happening, from what you know about, you know, the way that the taxes are levied in the area. So, you know, regardless of talking about the school referendum, you know, when people are saying they're seeing that their property taxes are going up pretty substantially even before the referendum, and if you could talk a little bit about what, from your knowledge, what's the cause of that, and if it's accurate.
Sure. So the question was a little more how your assessment basically happens right after how you pay taxes. So the Village of Mahomet does not assess your properties. That's the county, so the county assessor in their office, and I'm not going to even pretend to know what all the factors are in their process, but it is state regulated and mandated and whatnot. So what we're seeing, and I think in the Mahomet community for taxes, at least as far as assessments, they continue to go up. I think
the assessment means the county's idea of what your house is worth.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if you look at your tax bill, it'll have that value on there. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think from our perspective, I think if you're in the market to sell and move, it's a pretty good thing, right? Your home values are going up, and you're gonna probably sell your house pretty quick in Mahomet because it's a destination community. If you're like me and my wife that are not going anywhere anytime soon, and no, we don't like to see our tax bill go up. No one likes to see the tax bill go up. But overall, I think the community itself continues to see that. I don't imagine any kind of break in that in the future. I imagine it's going to continue to go up. How much more? I've asked that question to our assessor myself, and I think that I think it comes down to there are minimum requirements that the state of Illinois puts on all the counties, all the assessors, as far as the percentages, and they have to hit those percentages as well. So there's not only the local dynamic, but there's also a state dynamic to your assessment. So that's the best I can answer that question.
Thank you.
Can I have a follow-up question? Can you speak to the fact that tax rates
Sure.
so versus not causing the increase?
Yeah, so so I'll let the school district answer a little bit differently probably on this one, but for the village itself, we are tax capped within Champaign County, and what that means is we also ask for more than we're going to actually get as far as it's always that confusing question you see in the paper. Your tax is going to go up 39% or 42%, whatever the number is, and everybody freaks out and calls and is my tax really going up that much? No, the answer is no, but that's from again, just the way that it works from the state side of things. We have to put that out front, because what we don't want to do is basically underestimate what we need to come in on our side of things. So to your question, as far as explaining with me the percentages, you already heard 1%, so percentage back there as far as, you know, the school district is about 60% plus or minus of the tax bill. The Village of Mahomet's 10%. And you got Corn Belt, and you've got the library, you've got other taxing bodies that are asking for cents of your dollar. So we are about 10% of your tax bill on the property tax side. You want to speak to the tax caps for the district?
We are not tax capped,
So a little bit
because
different.
we are not tax capped, even though Champaign County is, because we have a small slice of property that is in Piatt County, which So we have a whole different set of rules that we follow when we go to levy, as opposed to the village.
Does that answer the question?
I think
Best I
what
could.
Jason might have been talking about is that, you know, that the increases are coming on people's things.
I can speak to that, sure.
Not because of the tax rates, it's because of the assessed value.
And the
Right.
school district has actually kept the tax rate steady.
Yes,
for-
so our rate has stayed pretty steady over the last, long time. 30 years, it's been a long time, that our rate has stayed pretty steady. People's tax bills go up because it's the rate times your estimated assessed valuation, which is a third of your, what your house is valued at. So as the value of your property goes up, if that rate stays the same, then your property tax bill goes up. Does that answer your question?
As far as the village perspective, we do publish our tax rates, and we also have a budget brief document that you can look at. And I think ours is, it does fluctuate, but we've seen decreases in consecutive years as far as our actual tax rate. But to your point, it's not us, it's your assessed value of your property, home, whatever that is actually going up.
Okay. So the other question, while you have the microphone in your hand, Sean, the other question I hear a lot, people say a lot, is why does the town let people keep building more houses when we know that we don't have room for them in the schools? And I feel like that was the main reason I asked you to come today is because I said I thought somebody would ask you that question, but I'll ask you that question. So why do we keep building houses? Why, if we don't have room for the kids in the school?
Sure. All right, well, I'll start with, it's gonna be a little bit more of education here first. So the way development works, as far as if it's residential development, in this case we're talking about, you said houses, but also commercial or even industrial, it starts with zoning. And zoning is controlled by the state, or as far as it's controlled by the state, then locally administered as far as zoning. And we basically look at different parcels and they'll be zoned certain ways. So for a house, for a farm, for whatever that is, right? So zoning. And what that means is basically if it's properly zoned, that developer or that owner has the right, by right, to develop that property if it's in accordance with the zoning classification. So in other words, if you have a residential property, you can't tear down your house and build a gas station, for instance, right? But you can build a house. So zoning. We have a planning and zoning commission, which is a commission beneath the board of trustees, and they advise us, and they oversee a lot of the development. So a lot of the houses you're seeing today have been in the works, or the phases of these subdivisions have been in the works for 10, 15, even 20 years. I think I can count on one hand how many new developments we've had that we didn't have maybe on the books for a decade or more. So it's a slow process of which, when we talk about planning and coordination with the school district, is we can see the projections. We can kind of know what's coming online. So those are conversations we have and coordinate and collaborate as best we can. To your question, can we stop the housing? Is that kind of, that was the second
question
part.
I hear. It's not my question, but I hear it a lot. Well, why don't we just stop building until we have room for until the schools catch up, or
Correct. So for the Village of Mahomet, roughly 10,000 people, right? School district, 15, 16,000, plus or minus. So what we have done in the last 5 to 10 years is really concentrate on our controlling growth within our corporate boundaries, corporate limits of the Village of Mahomet. We have more control over that. Outside of the Village of Mahomet, we do have, I guess, you could say, awareness or certain rights within the 1.5 miles, but anything outside of that, it's Champaign County, and we have zero control. So what we wanted to do is have more focus on what we can control and not incentivize residential outside of that corporate boundary. So if you would say, and John, you asked me this question, maybe not here to this venue, but you did ask me before, let's say we flipped a switch. We said, no more houses in Mahomet. We're gonna just put a more moratorium on building residential. One, if you're already zoned, it'd be illegal because we couldn't stop that. But if we did that, what would happen? I think everybody can guess the answer is they're just gonna go outside of the village to build, development. So, and we saw that, and then we do our quarterly meetings with the Board of Education and the Board of Trustees, and we talk about that, and we track different census data, and you can see where we have kind of changed that trajectory of that inward growth or inward development for the village. So, could we stop it? No. Can we curb it? Maybe. But we definitely have a best interest to try to do the best we can within our corporate boundary and be more collaborative with the other taxing bodies. So, did that answer it?
Yeah, I think so. That was a good question, good answer. You guys feel like that answered the question? I didn't know. I mean, I've been asking that. Honestly, I have personally asked that question to myself. And, you know, I caught Sean over at Brick's Pizzeria at their grand opening, and I asked him, and he's like, yeah, you know, if we turned it off in the city, they'd just start building outside the village boundary. It's like, oh, well, you're right. Because it's great being in Mahomet Seymour School District. Admit, you know, people want to be in this school district.
Yes. And you just heard, it's happening now, and it is happening, but it's happening at a slower rate than it was before.
I've got one or two questions left, but I don't, again, I want to turn it back out to the audience to let you guys have first dibs. Anybody, you want a second bite at the apple, or, and
I got a bunch more.
well, that's why we're here, so,
So,
go ahead.
I guess back to the building stuff. Based upon what is the current growth rate of the school?
Sure.
And how long will this referendum cover us? Because I feel like I just got done, or I still am paying for the referendum from the previous school, and you're gonna have this referendum, and what's the next one coming in 5 years?
Sure. So the previous school was funded through sales tax.
So,
There
okay,
will-
all of it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's being funded.
It's being funded, yes. The sales tax money that comes in through this Champaign, the sales facility tax, pays for the alternative revenue bonds and the debt certificates on that. But you can see that we have our historical and projected growth here, right on the website with that. You can see that in the fall of 2018, actually, and I wasn't here, I know I'm running out of time where I can use that, but the village and the school district partnered to have a demographic study. Matt Cropper is nationally known for doing the GIS. It was presented to the board in January of 19, then the fall of 21. During the previous facility planning efforts, the district obtained updated forecasts going out to year 2031. But we all know that forecasting is you know, the farther out you get year-wise, the less reliable it is. We've got on the website here, we've got a historical and projected enrollment with the district that would have us at 2031 up to 3755. In the past 10 years, we've seen an average year-over-year growth of 1.4%, or roughly 45 students a year. Now, when I arrived, we saw a little over 6% growth. We think that was because that was the first year after COVID, and there was some homeschooling going on, and there was some more private schooling that was occurring. So last year, we went right back into that somewhere between 1.5% and 2%. And we've seen a little bit of a spike this year, but that was when we ran it right at Labor Day, and we generally see that level off a little bit and come right back towards the historical growth trends with that. So if you can see, this is a little bit more convoluted, that shows what the average is, but the one that I wanted to get to here shows, and I don't know if you can see the dotted lines and such from there, but I talked a little bit about how we also can control the need for classes with the class size. So if you can see here that it's lined out for planned capacity, and then you can see where it's got max capacity, which is the little bit longer dots, and then our enrollment along with our projected enrollment. It's got the estimated enrollment that would be low, average, and high. So if we run at a high estimated enrollment, you can see that has us at about 2041 of running out of room again. So we feel like and again, we're trying to go out a lot of years here to make sure that this is what we need for the next 20 years. But predicting anything for 20 years is very difficult. But if we look at the past, with compared to that, you can see the projections there.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Because I've been here 21 years. When was the last referendum for the school district?
The past?
Like late nineties, they built the field house and the
Okay.
fourth grade wing.
What was it, 98?
97, 98.
97.
The field house was built with a grant.
Before most of us were born.
Nope, we were all.
Let's just go with that.
Let me see if you had your
I'm
one
just still
follow-up
trying,
with
so
this, so,
I was just trying to digest the chart. I can go back. This is on the website too?
Yes, so let me show you the easiest way to get to this.
Yeah, so it's,
If you just go to our website, Muhammad Seymour Community Schools, and then over here on the left, it says November 2024 referendum.
Okay.
And if you click on that, and then you just go to enrollment.
okay, cool.
And high capacity on that is based on what percent of growth? On the red line, one more down.
there you go.
High growth of 2% year over year.
Okay. And so in the high, worst case scenario in high, well, depending on how you look at it, right?
Your
High, worst case for filling up the school systems based upon what we're proposing to build by the referendum, it gets us to 2041, is that what you said?
Yes, of max capacity. So that's gonna be your higher class sizes. I wanna be transparent with
Right,
that.
I understand, it's
Okay.
like, this,
So scroll up a little bit. The bigger dotted line is max capacity, so that red line at the top is
Yep.
where it intersects with that line there, yes, that's where we would meet max capacity. But if they're looking at the blue line, the middle one, we would be all the way out to 2045 before we hit that larger dotted line at max
gets you
capacity.
4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
It's 2045, I'll
And can
probably.
you talk about how additions are planned to be funded beyond?
Actually, before we go on to that, I feel like your question wasn't quite finished. Are you
No,
gonna-
I got it, it's like, she was clarifying what I thought.
And I see that our architectural firm representative there, and I'm pretty sure that's.
Yeah.
I would just like to clarify.
Hold on real quick. When you get to digesting this, just click that I have a question if you wanna talk through anything, okay?
And just one clarifier, as we're planning for 20 years, as Dr. Lee said, some of it becomes guesswork because things change. 1.4% over 4,000 students is a bigger number than 1.4% over 3,500 students. So consistently seeing that same rate of change over time is less likely. So we have to think it's both things. We're trying to calculate based on a percentage, but that would also mean that there are more individual children coming in the district at a time, which is something that needs to be considered when we're looking at these numbers. Sorry.
All right, now there was somebody with a red sweater back here who wanted to say something.
Well, a concern people have had is, let's say we're at high rate of growth and we get to max capacity in 2041 and we haven't paid off the referendum, are you gonna be asking for another referendum in the plan if everything goes as planned?
Well, certainly, there's zero fun about running a referendum.
Oh,
So
yeah.
anything that we can do to not run one, we would do. So one thing is that all these buildings will be built that they could be, both of these buildings, if the referendum passes, will be built that they can be expanded upon. So we're not looking at additional buildings with that. But then certainly we have our county facility sales tax that is a little over $300,000 a month that comes in. That would be a viable option with that. And then also we'll continue to look at our various bonding. You can do all kinds of things with your different bonds.
So we get 300K a month from
Yeah.
sales tax?
Yes. Yeah. Roughly. It depends on month, obviously.
Just to the school district?
Just to us, yes.
Yeah, the library doesn't get any.
Most of that.
I don't get any of that.
Yeah, right. And most of that goes towards the debt certificates and the alternative revenue bonds that built Middletown Prairie.
But follow on to her question, how long will it take us to pay this referendum off at the current rates?
20 years.
20 years.
Yes. They're 20-year bonds.
So a follow-up question while there's a pause on this chart. There is, you spoke earlier about the capacity already being beyond max capacity in at least 2 of our buildings, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yes.
So it might be logical to conclude that we could go beyond that max capacity just as we have now, although it wouldn't be our choice.
Right, yes, you could, yes. The question is that we could probably go beyond max capacity and still function as we're doing now in the 2 buildings, yes. And we have done that for several years because of our resilient staff and resilient students.
Sorry.
No,
I guess my next crazy one is like, how are we not keeping up? I look at Muhammad, I've been here too long,
36 years.
36 years, and the sheer growth of the houses, the businesses, and the other stuff. And if we've kept a flat rate on the amount we're charging for the school district, why is that not, those funds not keeping up with what we need for the schools? I mean, I just look, I live in Thorwood, one of the highest tax parts in good old Muhammad. And I look at all those houses and I know how much property tax each house is paying, and it's a crazy amount of money. So how do we not have funds to build our schools that we're having to go back and ask those same people paying the property taxes to pay more property taxes?
Sure.
That's a great question.
So,
Can
yeah.
So I was thinking I could answer at kind of a 30,000 foot level, and then you can go in the weeds. That's a great question. I also live in Thornwood, so
Yeah,
aware of
welcome to my
taxes.
pain.
And you have to remember a couple of things. First of all, about 80% of the school district's budget goes to salaries and benefits for employees.
Okay.
So, okay, there's a significant majority chunk of the budget is paying for people. And as everybody knows, those costs continue to go up. And the district is paying salaries, the district is paying health insurance, healthcare, everything that all other industries are subject to in terms of rising costs, the school district is as well, except we're trying to all fit it into very limited funds. We're not turning a profit every year, we're just trying to balance the budget. The other thing to remember is that in Illinois, public schools do not have a menu of options to choose from when it comes to building new buildings. There's very limited numbers of things to do. Basically 2 things. And I can only think of 2 right now. Maybe there's more than 2. It might be 3. But the 2 are to do what we did with Middletown Prairie Elementary, which is, to simplify it, this is how I think in my mind, is took out a giant loan in the form of bonds, and we are paying back that loan through the county schools facility sales tax, which is that $300,000 per month that Dr. Lee referenced. Now, not all of the county schools facility sales tax that the district gets is going to pay Middletown Prairie. The district has, since that went into effect, it was voted in Champaign County in 2009. It was one of the first counties in Illinois to vote in the county schools facility sales tax. So it went into effect in 2010. And some of that money has been used to just make improvements throughout the schools. And I mean, there's a huge list of improvements that have been made in our school buildings. Oh, there we go. Where the school district has not had to go and ask taxpayers for that money. Now, I get it, you're indirectly paying through your property taxes, and when you go and you spend money and you pay the 1% sales tax that comes back to the schools. So I wanna make it clear, I'm not saying you're not paying, I'm just saying you're paying in an indirect way. So without going to the voters and asking with our hands out to pay for all these other improvements, the school district has done a lot of work in all of our buildings to make improvements without asking for a tax rate increase or a referendum. So that's the county schools facility sales tax. The other option we have is what we're doing right now, which is go to the taxpayers and say, we need your help in paying. And I've, as a superintendent and as a school administrator, I've worked on a number of different referenda in different school districts, and it certainly is in the top 3 of like least fun things to do. We're also here, also paying our, if this passes, my taxes go up. I'm assuming everybody here is a resident of the school district. We're all going to pay. It is not an easy ask, but I say all this just to say that the options are extremely limited in Illinois. Other states have different laws about how to do this. In fact, Iowa has gone to the county schools facility sales tax is statewide. Here it's been county by county. There's pros and cons to both, but we just don't have a lot of options. So I hope that helps just maybe give some background information. But I can say, from having been superintendent here, we've really done our best and tried to keep up, but we know that going to the taxpayers and asking is a huge ask, and it's a lot of work for everybody inside the school district, and that's what we're here to do. But you don't want to do that very often because it's a big ask, and we understand that.
I feel like you were asking why the current money can't go towards construction. Is that?
It was getting good in there. It's like I have
That's
twofold
current
questions.
money.
Is
What
what,
current property taxes? Like you talked about.
It's taken up with paying all of our bills.
so 80% of what we pay in our property taxes goes to paying salaries and benefits.
No, 60% of what you pay in your property taxes comes to the school district,
Yes.
and then 80% of that is salary and benefits for employees.
And keep in mind too that in a previous role that I've served, there were rather large chemical corporations and things like that that really helped with the tax burden. And with us being more of a bedroom community, there's just not a lot of industry, and generally that's what helps with that. Another thing I think we need to keep in mind, and don't quote me on the number, but you know, we're around somewhere between $8,000 and $9,000 a year it would cost to educate a child. So if you've got someone living in a house that there are no children, well, you know, that covers that. But if you've got a house that the tax bill's $10,000 and there's 3 children, you know, that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm not looking at you.
So you said 8 to 9K a year?
I'll get you an exact number.
It's ballpark, right?
Yeah, right close to that.
Yeah.
How soon will we pay off MPE?
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah, between 5 and 6 years, yes.
Okay.
That's for the high
Still
school.
on that question. There was a post this week that I felt like answered that question, and maybe it was incorrect. I was under the impression that the property taxes that we're currently paying to the school district are restricted for operational costs and cannot be used for construction costs.
If we levy for education, the education fund, that needs to go to pay for education.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got the capital projects fund can build buildings and things like that, but we don't levy for the capital projects fund. We get some sales tax money that we get from that, but we can't just levy for that without a referendum. And that would be passing the bonds, issuing the bonds, and then the county tells us how much money we can collect for that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, anything, I have one question that I'd love to hear your answer to because, and I'll let you go ahead and keep the mic for now. Naturally. I think there is a possibility that this referendum will not pass, as the other ones that we've done so far on this have not. What do we do then? Let's say, just hypothetically, we don't pass a referendum in the next 3 to 5 years. What will we have to do to continue educating our kids, and where will the money for that come from?
So what we would do is, if it doesn't pass, then continue to operate status quo for now, but on November 7th, then we would just continue planning for what happens when we continue to see our increased enrollment. And what that is that's a balance of what makes the most amount of sense for our students. So does that mean portable classrooms at Lincoln Trail for now? Does that mean portable classrooms at Lincoln Trail and a third one at the junior high? Possibly. We would balance that on. Does that make, do we want to put more teachers on carts in looking at that? Or does it make the most sense to raise class sizes even more than what they are? All of those parameters or all of those indicators that we take a look at would come into play. For instance, just plopping down a portable at Lincoln Trail, there'd be ramifications with regard to our playground's not big enough for the amount of students we have there now, and then taking up that space with a portable. So we would have to balance that with, do we increase class size, or do we continue to be as creative as possible? At some point, though, we would have to go to portables because, I mean, you can't get blood out of a turnip, right? I mean, you can only convert so many different spaces for offices and things like that. One thing that with the portables that is you know, that I just dislike is the amount of money that it takes, not necessarily for the lease. The lease payments are generally about $1,000 a month, give or take. But the site work of getting technology and electricity and things like that, if you have to pour piers, and that's just not a good use of taxpayer dollars, in my opinion. So,
There are no plumbing, no
there's
bathrooms.
no bathrooms and things like that. You know, they're portables, right? So I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars, but if that's what we have to do in order to educate students, then that's what we'll take a look at. Mike?
How, sorry, I know you got a list. That sound, when I think about anybody's child, not just my own, who go into these classes, these portables, that sounds really unsafe. Beyond the nuisance of it and the teachers, and that I have a lot of empathy for that. That just sounds like, how do you control people coming in and out of a campus and that just sounds terrible. Am I off base here, or is it just as safe, or?
No, it's not just as safe. I will tell you though that our junior high staff has come up with a plan to where we do have the safest portables that I've seen. As in a former life, as a junior high principal, they just plopped down 2 portables right outside of the building. And where our junior high staff coming in, Mr. Mills and Mr. Fisher at the time planned out some fencing and things like that to where, you know, again, it's you know, very similar to a mobile home, so it's not as sturdy, certainly, as a cinder block building or things like that. So, you know, weather and then students coming in and out during the day is fine on a day like this, but when it's 20 below, obviously, I've had problems with them freezing up in the past. We haven't had that here. So there are some issues that come along with that, but as compared to other districts and how they manage their portables, I'm comfortable saying that ours are safer. It's a safer environment than most, but still not ideal at all.
They have 2 doors out, right?
What's that?
They have two exit paths, right?
Yes.
Yeah, how about that?
I have a question regarding trying to think of how to word it. If this referendum does not pass in November, the state being corporate, could they come down, look at Muhammad in a few years and say, this just isn't safe. You haven't done enough, we're gonna shut you down. Can they do that?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Given some life safety.
Yeah, no, I mean, there have been districts that I'm aware of and under certain health life safety issues where the buildings are in much worse condition, have been condemned, but I don't envision that being a possibility. I don't envision that being in the near future here.
Yeah, you got time for one or two more, or for?
So I guess back to you gave the answer of the, portables, class size, et cetera, but is there an option we'll come back and try the sales tax? Why are we not considering the sales tax approach with like MPE?
So because that's only so much revenue that comes in every month, and a lion's share of that right now is going to make payments on MPE.
Yeah, why can't we charge more sales tax, and in 5 or 6 years, when that sales tax has finished MPE, put that towards the building?
We have no control over the sales tax.
Yeah.
So
It's a 1% sales tax.
Right,
county.
but can the county choose to go back and do a 2% sales tax? Because
No.
Mahomet and other school systems are in need of that rate.
1% is the maximum on that law.
On that law?
On
Yes.
that law.
Okay. So the answer is there isn't enough funds to cover a second building. We'd have to wait 5 years for that money to be unallocated, as he's saying, from MPE to use.
And that's what, in this proposal, that's what would pay for the high school improvements. So in 6 years, that's gonna be $40 million, which wouldn't construct a new junior high.
Sorry, on the property tax approach, is there no way to get this to where it's just a certain amount per household? My grand fear and grand hate is it just constantly, it's a double whammy. My house gets assessed higher every year, and because my house is assessed higher year, I have to pay a higher rate to the thing. Why can't it be a flat rate per household in Mahomet?
Yeah, it's the state of Illinois.
Okay, so that's back to that, I need to move out of Illinois. Got a house in Thornwood, maybe ready for sale.
Hey Max, don't take off, he's getting ready to sell.
We'll talk afterwards. I gotta go fix the mistakes. Where would you like to go?
I would like to, if I could just say something just to kind of put things in context. I do not live in Mahomet. I'm the director of the library here, but my home is in Rantoul, about halfway between where I work and where my grandkids live. I was just looking today at the Champaign County property tax lookup thing, and it looks like the rate of property taxes in Mahomet, I looked at probably 10 properties, are pretty much 7.9% is the rate, that's what they take towards your, by times your assessed value. I'm paying 10.07% in Rantoul.
John, can I?
Yeah.
So, I live in Briarcliff, and I've got a house that's, my EAV is a little bit less than $100,000. So when I wanted to run my comparison, I just ran it at the assessed valuation of $100,000 for ease. And of my tax bill, if my house was worth, on the tax bill, if it said it was worth $300,000 and I had EAV of 100,000, you can see that this is just the school portion of your tax bill. You can see that 4,600 and change is what it would cost. If one lived down the street from John, that would be his tax rate towards the school, and that's what it would go. And then you can see the same for Urbana, Champaign, St. Joe Ogden. So that would be St. Joe Grade and St. Joe Ogden, not the other feeders. I don't have those numbers on me. And then you can see it at Fisher and Unity. So that's a comparison of a few of our local school districts with regard to the education rate for the school system.
So do kids that go to Fisher that have a Mahomet school address, do they pay to this referendum?
So if you live in the school district, you would pay to the referendum. This is just examples of other school districts and what their education tax rate is, the last numbers that they ran. Yes.
A while back, there was the News Gazette published a table listing what each school district spent per head, per child. Can you address how we compare to other districts?
Yes. I do not have that in front of me or memorized, but we have been contacted before about, do you remember any of that?
Yeah, Heather sent that.
Yeah, what our instructional expenditure per student is.
Per student compared.
Yeah, I mean, compared to other districts, we're on the lower end.
Yes. That's why I'd like to show that, but I don't have it
And
on.
we are, we're well below the state average, which I know gets, that's taking into consideration 800 school districts. But
This isn't the local communities, this slide was the Monticello, Morton, and Runway, which you consider
Yes.
schools.
Right, we had to use that during.
we're about $9,000 per student.
So a lot of times when we talk about, we compare our school districts, we compare ourselves to people who look and have similar test scores, things like that. So we look at Monticello, Morton, Dunlap, are our main districts that we look at. We oftentimes look at Mount Zion as well. So if you look at education fund, our revenue per pupil, so not expenditure per pupil, the revenue per pupil is roughly $9,200 for Muhammad, and that is much lower than Dunlap at $10,000 and Morton at $13,000, and Monticello's at $18,000. But I think what you're asking about is the expenditure per pupil, right? And because that's what it's on our Illinois State Report card, and then you can compare that to others as well.
Yeah, I think there's a perception out there that we really have a Cadillac school district in terms of our spending. It's not true.
No, it's not, and that goes back to when so you can, when we talked about earlier about evidence-based funding within the state of Illinois, you're assigned a tier, and if you're funded over 100%, so if the state says this is what you guys should have for revenue, and you're over that, you're in what's called tier 1, for instance, or excuse me, tier 4. I've got those backwards. So the best one you can be in is tier 4, and we're a tier 1 school because we're funded at about 64% of what they say that we need. So I know that people pay a lot in taxes. It's the state of Illinois, but the bang for your buck is pretty high here in Mahomet Seymour.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and call this. I'd like to thank Dr. Lee, Dr. Hall, Dr. and Dr. White here. Just a guy. I'm sorry, do you have any college degree? But, I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you've enjoyed the ability to do this. I know that any one of these 4 people are happy to answer questions outside of this context as well. I know that, really, I want to thank everybody for just being so civil and, organized and kind of really just asking good, thoughtful questions. I hope this is something we can do a lot more of here at the library. If you have things that are going on in the community, say, I'd really like to hear from this person. I'm happy to bring them in and put them on camera and grill them. So thank you for all for coming, and